Exciting news! Nas has released his 11th studio album. Amazing. Now, of course, Nas is a hip hop institution. He has been going and releasing great albums since 1994. And this recent project is something we've wanted for a long time. It is a sort of collaboration between Kanye West and Nas. So this album is produced entirely by Kanye West. He's got some co-producers here. Mike Dean co-produces most of the tracks here as well. There's contributions from Kashmir Benny Blanco, and the sort of guys we've seen working on the last couple of Kanye West helmed projects. Something I like to call Good Summer. So quickly recap, we had Pusha T's Daytona, good. Kanye West and Ye, also good. Kanye West and Kid Cudi, Kids See Ghosts, really enjoyed that one. And this latest one, the 4th out of 5 albums that have been released in consecutive weeks, is the new Nas album, Nasir. So this is a big treat we've got. I mean, Nas has been talking about doing collab albums with people like Common and DJ Premier, and it's never really come to fruition. So it's quite exciting to see a new Nas album, firstly, but also an album with Nas and Kanye West working so closely together. And like the previous Good Summer albums, Nasir is 7 songs long. It runs to just under 25 minutes. And it's very tight. It's very, as you'd imagine, it's very concise. This is the sort of things we've been seeing from the other Good Summer albums. And again, it's a high standard. This is really, really enjoyable to me. Personally, I'm a huge Nas fan. I think he's one of the best rappers to ever walk the earth and all that sort of shit. But it really is a great album, and we'll get into a bit more detail. Something that I've loved about the Good Music albums is how much the beats have been tailored to the artist. Now, Kanye hasn't solely produced every single song, but he has been producing all the songs with collaborators at least to some degree. And the beats have really matched the artist that they're doing it for. So Pusha T's beats were quite dark and eerie. The Kids See Ghosts album was really psychedelic, had some really interesting instrumental passages. And this Nas album really just feels like a return to like the old school like boom bap sort of stuff that we heard from Nas when he first came out. Cops Shot the Kid is a really fast-paced boom bap style song with great production. It's based all around the Slick Rick sample from Children's Story, Cop Shot the Kid, and that's just looped. It's really, really, really fast, and then Nas just comes in with a really like rapid fire flow and just flows like really nice, really like feels like just straight lines, just bars basically from Nas about police brutality and how it affects people in the black community. And it just has this old school vibe, and it's great to hear Slick Rick samples again because that is a cornerstone of hip hop. That is one of those things that sort of died out after the 90s really. But we heard a Slick Rick sample on the last Kanye album, and we've got a very prominent one here, so Kanye seems to be bringing it back a little bit, which I'm in favour of. And the beats feel old school, yet fresh. So that is that's another great thing about this project, because Nas has always had criticism about his beat selection. Personally, I think he's had some great beats over his career, like Got Yourself a Gun, and New York State of Mind, and Nas is Like. So I think he's had some great productions, but this album really has some really nice beats on it. And Nas even makes reference to the importance of production, and he doesn't really listen to the criticism like that too much. But I think fans, well, people who say that he's not got great beats, will be surprised by this album. It's been 14 years since Nas's seminal debut album, Illmatic, was released. And as you would expect, the now 44-year-old rapper is living a different life than the kid who grew up watching gunfights from his project windows. So, as we've seen with a lot of rappers, such as Jay-Z's 44, and to a lesser degree Eminem's Revival. This is a grown man rap album, therefore the subject matter is a lot more mature, there's a lot more introspection here, there's talk about how his kids are older and just where he's at in his career and just how he's just taking it a bit more easy compared to the more aggressive style we heard earlier in his career. And Nas arguably started this grown man rap trend with Life is Good in 2012, inspired by his divorce from R&B singer Khalees. That album was a real deep dive into his psychology and how he felt about the breakup. And in the 6 years we've been waiting for a new Nas album, he's been a bit quieter musically. He's had a few guest features, but not too much. We saw Nas get some nasty accusations from Khalees, a bit of personal stuff between those two back and forth. And we also saw Nas on a sort of like the American version of Who Do You Think We Are? Who Do You Think You Are? Where he learned a bit about his ancestors and their lives as slaves. And it's something that seems to have had a bit of a profound impact on Nas, because there is a lot more references to Afrocentrism here and to black history than you'd previously hear on a Nas album. He's not adverse to talking about that stuff, but one of the primary themes of this album is Afrocentrism and black pride, really. And that's something we've seen in hip hop since Donald Trump took over, and we've seen this rise of the alt-right in America, which is basically just a lot more racist. So now we're seeing a lot more of this discussion. We've seen, like, obviously the protests in the NFL, and we are hearing this coming out more in the music, and Nas has not shied away from this. He makes countless references on here to the plight of blacks in America at the moment. He talks about the Starbucks affair, he talks about his ancestors as slaves and how that part of America is something that's affected him deeply as well. He was quite emotional on the show when he was talking about when he was presented with the this receipt for the sale of his one of his ancestors as a slave. The second theme from this album is the 7 deadly sins of the old Christianity faith. 7 songs on here and 7 deadly sins, and they're loosely related throughout each of the tracks. The opener, Not for Radio, concerns pride. This is Nas talking about black pride, talking about how I love the line on here about how a black man started Fox News in reference to Barack Obama and his popularity or lack of popularity in the Fox News audience really spurred that TV station on and revived it, basically. So, and it takes just 15 seconds into the album before we hear a really energetic, relentless Nas verse talking about just pride and just blackness and really like getting into it. We've touched on track 2, Cops Shot the Kid, Slick Rick sample. The theme on this one is wrath. It mainly talks about, as you'd imagine, police brutality in the black community in America. We get a good verse from Kanye and Nas, and they play off each other and talk about the cycle of violence. Track 3, White Label, talks about addiction. We heard Nas talk about addiction on World and Addiction on Life is Good. He continues the theme here, talking about his actions in the past, how he's addicted to things like sex and smoking weed, and that if you do these things in excess, it's going to catch up with you. And he describes some of his sort of sexual exploits in quite a uncompromising, frank way that makes it sound, it doesn't really glamorize it like some rappers would. It makes it sound really harsh and cutting. And it's an interesting way of sort of showing the darker side of Nas. Track 4, Bonjour, concerns lust. Nas talks about his jet-setting lifestyle. Again, he talks about a lot of sex and drugs, and this one is more of a sort of traditional boast rap track, really. One of the weaker songs on the album, but still enjoyable. Track 5 concerns greed, And this is a song, another track about black pride, about Nas becoming rich and being able to give his family and himself a better life than the one he had when he was younger. This is quite a somber, introspective track. There's an extended intro with Kanye West and The Dream, sort of setting the tone with some really chilling and atmospheric singing that really just bring this track together. It's a really strong track on the album, and it talks about just race, really talks about just this big monster in America at the moment and how black people just don't feel represented over there. Adam and Eve is track 6. This one's related to sloth. And we hear Nas talking about his life, his like daily routine, what he gets up to, and he sort of tries to inspire the next generation with some insights and things he wished he knew when he was younger. He talks about ancestors, again mentioning his ancestors that were slaves and how that affected his life. And finally, Envy, which talks about jealousy, and this sort of addresses the criticism levelled at him by Khalees and some of the women he's been with in the past, and he sort of just tries to set the record straight here a bit. Overall, this is a great album. I love Nasir. I think this is one of Nas's strongest work so far, and the bar is already high for him, but I really love this. I love what he's done here, and to hear him and Kanye West working together like this just is brilliant. It's been worth the 6-year wait. Definitely going to give it 9 out of 10.